One.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Milton Board of Appeals. The date is August 3. It's slightly after 7 p.m. in the evening. And this is the Board of Appeals hearing regarding the comprehensive permit application under Chapter 40B for 936 Brush Hill Road. My name is Frank O'Brien, and I will be chairing this particular hearing. Joining me are my fellow board members, Virginia Donahue King and Ted Daber. The purpose of this meeting this evening is to deal with several logistical and scheduling issues regarding the application for a comprehensive permit regarding 936 Brush Hill Road. This hearing will be limited to those issues and several technical matters. No public testimony will be taken during the course of this hearing. We will only be dealing with, as I said, scheduling and logistical issues. Joining us this evening, in addition, is the attorney for the applicant, Mr. Jesse Schomer of the firm. Jesse, I always mess up the name.
Rignante Stereo.
Rignante Stereo. Thank you, sir. Welcome once again to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
So, as I mentioned earlier, the primary purpose of this meeting is to discuss several scheduling issues, primarily on the scheduling side of things. The delay of this particular hearing regarding 936 Brush Hill Road. Under the provisions of 760 CMR 56053, a stay of a hearing under an application being filed pursuant to Chapter 40B may be implemented. The application may be postponed if 3 or more applications with more than 300 dwelling units are currently pending before a particular Board of Appeals in a town. Here in Milton, there are currently several 40B applications pending, including 582 Blue Hill Avenue with 118 units, 648 Canton Ave with 124 units, the residences at East Milton with 101 units, and the Ice House application, so-called, with 52. These are 4 applications currently pending with 395 units total. There is also a 5th one, which is in a similar procedural posture as this one on Amar Road. The applicant, represented by Mr. Schomer here, is in agreement that this particular hearing can be postponed subject to several conditions, and has filed a letter regarding that particular, if I could characterize it, Mr. Schomer, as a stipulation.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, is just very briefly, for the sake of the record, read the public hearing notice for this particular hearing, and then I will summarize the letter that has been filed by the applicant. Relative to the public meeting notice for this, this hearing is being held tonight relative to a proposal filed by 936 Brush Hill Road Comprehensive Land Holdings LLC, a proposal to build a 20-unit rental apartment development under the auspices of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, Section 21. This initial public hearing will address only issues relating to scheduling and logistics of the hearing. Mr. Schomer has provided to us a letter addressed to me as chair, which is dated July 28th. This letter and all of the other documents related to this particular filing, this particular hearing, may be found on the Board of Appeals website, the 40B portion of that website on the Town of Milton's website. We thank Mr. Schomer for his comprehensive letter. This letter basically lays out the applicant's agreement to a month-to-month delay of this particular application without a substantive discussion of the merits of the application, with three basic conditions. And I'm going to just read those conditions into the record. The applicant is in agreement that the 180-day deadline for the board to close the public hearing on this application pursuant to 760 CMR 56053 shall be told until such date as substantive hearings on this application commence, subject to the following conditions. 1, if, as of the date of the board September 2021 hearing on this matter, the board is still eligible for a stay under 760 CMR 56053 based on the pendency of the 4 above named Chapter 40B applications, which I have recited. The public hearing on this matter shall be again continued without substantive discussion of the application to the board's next monthly meeting for the following month, and the 180-day deadline for the board to close the public hearing on this application shall continue to be told. Second, same procedure shall be conducted on a month-to-month basis until such time as the board's eligibility for a stay under 760 CMR 56053 based on the pendency of the 4 above noted Chapter 40B applications expires. 3, at the board's first regular monthly meeting after the town's eligibility for a stay under 760 CMR 56053, based on the pendency of the 4 above named Chapter 40B applications expires, this matter will be scheduled for substantive hearings to commence within 30 days, and the 180-day deadline for the board to close the public hearing on this application shall begin to run at the first substantive hearing on this application. Mr. Schomer, I thank you for putting this letter together, providing it to the board. I would note that it is identical to a letter also filed by this applicant in another pending hearing. Mr. Schomer, at this point in time, I want to ask, do you have anything that you'd like to add to what you have provided the board so far?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Schomer. Let me ask my fellow board members if they have any questions or comments to make at this point in time. Mrs. King.
No, I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Daber.
I also have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. For administrative simplicity, as I mentioned earlier, there is another pending application, and that particular pending application was postponed to the next hearing of the board, which is currently scheduled for September 9th. And for simplicity's sake, my suggestion is that we continue this hearing until 7:15 on September 9th. The board that will be meeting on September 9th will be able to therefore act both on this particular application as well as on the Amor Road application. So therefore, it is a matter of convenience and simplicity. Does anyone have any objections or questions relative to that particular procedure?
I do not.
Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to accept in the form of a stay the request of the applicant to delay this particular hearing, subject to the conditions that I have recited in the letter on file with the board, until September 9th at 7:15 p.m. But before I continue with that, I believe our Executive Secretary, Ms. Sutton, has a question.
I do, and I'm sorry to have to disturb this session. Attorney Galvin has his hand up, and I know we're not taking public, but I'm not sure if he's, I had to recognize it, that's all.
Well, thank you. Could we promote Ms. Attorney Galvin to a panelist, please? Attorney Galvin, welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm not in any way, I want to just tell you, I represent the Brush Hill Neighborhood Association, which is about 20 to 30 households in the area. I'm not here to oppose the request. I just would like to note for the record that the board doesn't need to obligate itself to any specific conditions because it has this right under the regulations, and I wanted to point that out. And sometimes during the public hearing process, the 180-day time frame it's extended by agreement or for other reasons. And I didn't want the board to waive any of its rights in that regard in the event such a circumstance were to occur in the future. And I won't say anything more than that.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Mr. Schomer, do you have anything you'd like to add to anything that Attorney Galvin has said, or anything else for the record?
I don't disagree with anything Attorney Galvin said. Good evening, sir. Just by way of background for his information and for anyone who's curious, the procedure for invoking the stay is somewhat unclear. This was something that I educated myself on in this instance. It's never been invoked before by a Board of Appeals. So the Amore Road application was the first time it actually occurred. And so the arrangement that we're proposing here and for the Amore Road application was an accommodation between myself and Town Council that would allow for the board to continue this and not have the 180-day period start ticking and have no sort of procedural ambiguity over the invocation of the stay. So that's the intent of the procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Sherwin. Mr. Galvin, anything you'd like to add?
No, I just, we're certainly not opposed to the invocation of a stay. I just wanted to give my 2 cents that I thought it was the board's right. And I didn't want to see the board obligate itself to complete 180 days after the commencement of the hearings, if in fact there was some other circumstance. So I'll leave it at that.
So noted.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask another question for clarification? So the hearing is continued to September 9th, which is the same date you indicated as another similar hearing, or it's in the same procedural posture. Does that mean that the same 3-person panel will consider it next time, or will both panels go on successively, or how does that work?
It is my understanding from speaking with Mr. Leonard that it is possible and appropriate for a 3-member board of the 3-member panel of the Board of Appeals. It does not necessarily have to be this particular panel or the particular panel that considered the Amore Road. It is appropriate for a 3-person panel of the Board of Appeals to act on a simple procedural matter such as delaying it for an additional 30 days. If and when we get to the point where the substantive portion of the hearing begins, that is the point where this board, as currently constituted, would have to be would have to meet and would have to consider the evidence and other materials that are provided. But a simple procedural vote, it's not necessary, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Any other questions or comments on members of the board? Mr. Schomer, Mr. Galvin, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Just
Thank you.
one question for me, Mr. Chair, and we did the same thing on the 16 Amore Road application. The suggestion I made there was that the board consider starting the process of appointing peer reviewers. I assume the board members will want the assistance of the town's peer reviewers in reviewing this application. And if the board is open to taking a vote, I think it would be appropriate at this time to authorize Ms. Barrett, Ms. Judy Barrett, the town's MHP consultant, to start making arrangements for the peer reviewers to be retained for this matter as well.
Mr. Schomer, thank you for the reminder. I had intended to do that as well. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, let me propose that we take two votes. The first vote would be to authorize the town to begin the peer review contracting process so as to begin to move this process along. This is consistent with what the other board on Amar Road has done. So, and then we would move into a second vote, which would be to delay this application to September 9th at 7:15 p.m. So is that acceptable to the members of the board? Mr. Galvin?
Yes, I just worry about, and I have no reason to disbelieve my brother attorney, and I'm not suggesting you should do otherwise, but could it be noted if you are going to appoint peer reviewers that is with the consent of the applicant, not the commencement of the public hearing process?
So noted. Mr. Schomer, I believe that was the procedural posture in the other hearing as well.
Yes, it was, Mr. Chair, and we're in agreement with that.
Thank you. All right, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, so may I have a motion to authorize the town of Milton to begin the process to retain peer consultants for the review of the application on 936 Brush Hill Road.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Thank you. May I also have a motion to delay the consideration of this application until September 9th at 7:15 p.m.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
King. Mr. Daber. All
Second.
those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Mr. Schomer. Thank you, Mr. Galvin. I hope that we have several more hearings this lengthy. I know that we will be digging into this as we have on others, and I thank you for your attendance this evening, and I look forward for your participation in this process, and I look forward to working with my fellow board members, as well as Ms. Sutton on this issue. And I know that going forward that we will also be hearing from many neighbors, stakeholders, and interested parties. And as always, we look forward to a robust and iterative process. So with that, I'm going to bring this hearing to a close. Can I have a motion to adjourn the hearing?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning this evening's hearing signify by saying aye. Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good
Right.
evening.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.